Got some breaking news from Israel. The office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the Prime Minister went on a secret visit to the United Arab Emirates and met with the president of the UAE. They say the top secret trip resulted in a historic breakthrough in relations between the two countries and arguably the two forces, right? CBS News Middle East contributor Courtney Kealy is live watching this historic move. What does this mean for the war with Iran, and what security measures would even have to go into having this trip be secret and not known to the world until just now?
Well, secret maybe because it's so dangerous right now to be traveling, especially for an Israeli prime minister, to a country that is under attacks from Iran. I mean, Iran was launching drone attacks on the UAE last week intensely around May 6th and 7th. They have been in their scope. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did do this trip publicly, but that was before October 7th, when they were really working on getting the Gulf countries on board for the Arab Accords. And October 7th really changed everything. And now he went secretly during wartime. The English translation of the name is Harry's Roar, but I looked it up, but it's more like the roar of the lion or the lion's roar, which this operation of Israel is calling these operations in Iran. Now, David Barnea, the Mossad chief, did make a couple of trips beforehand, probably to make sure it was okay before the prime minister went. But this news really shows the alliance between Israel and a Gulf country, and maybe the resurgence of the Abraham Accord in some way, especially since rather than dealing with the Palestinian-Israeli issue, right now they're dealing with the Iranian issue, and the UAE and the Prime Minister of Israel making this meeting is significant. Even though it was covert, it's an overt hand of friendship, and the Iranians have seen the UAE as being pro-Israel and pro-American. This only sharpens that lens into focus that they are.
Yeah, I have so many questions, and I know will be weeks, months, maybe even years until we get them answered. But like, who made the first call, and how was that call received, and what kind of coordination? It's just fascinating to see this. I also want to ask you about President Trump's trip to China. First of all, look at this with me, if you will. This is a Reuters animation. A Chinese super tanker. It's said to carry some, 2 million barrels of Iraqi oil, so big dollars worth of oil there. It's the third known passage of a Chinese oil tanker to get past the Strait of Hormuz since the U.S. began their war with Iran. But the big question I have today is, when asked about what the president plans to discuss with President Xi, he says Iran may not even be one of those topics. But given that news, how does Iran not figure into something they'll bring to the table?
Right. How is Iran not going to come up is the big question. I don't know how to answer that yet. And as Nancy said just previously with you, she was talking about all the heads of the CEO and the over $1 trillion brain trust and bank trust that is headed with President, and that these meetings had been organized ahead of the trip. Now, remember, this summit had to be pushed back because of Iran. It was originally scheduled for the end of March, early April, and it has been pushed back. Now, the president clearly wanted to push it back, so Iran didn't come up. And that animation that you just saw really brings back up the Strait of Hormuz, which we talk about all the time. But most importantly, between China and Iran, is they have a real trade relationship. Iran does export oil and energy to China. They've done it under cover of doing it without, with disregarding U.S. sanctions. So China and Iran have a relationship. The Iranian foreign minister went to China last week, meeting with his counterparts. And so you have the Chinese now in kind of a hard place, making deals with the U.S. or not, keeping Iran happy or not. And the president is very unhappy with the latest iteration of what Iran said they would agree to in any kind of talks. And it was really a no-go. They're demanding war reparations, and they want immediate lifting of sanctions and all the cessations of conflict that are happening with the proxies like Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, just for instance. And Iran just keeps saying no, and they're emboldened and they're empowered, and they're not as weak as we thought they would be after the death of the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei on day one. So Israel making these covert relationships, continuing their own operations. It really looks like a standoff between the U.S. and Iran. But will China broker any deal and then wait for it? Taiwan. You can go from the Strait of Hormuz all the way to Strait of Taiwan. The Chinese think that they should have sovereignty over Taiwan. The U.S. has never really come out and said anything about that, so keep your ears peeled in case Trump goes unilateral on that. And the Chinese foreign minister who met with Abbas Araghchi, the Iranian foreign minister, last week, he said any kind of peace in the Strait of Taiwan and Taiwan being independent is like fire and water. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but fire and water, is not something that anyone wants to see anymore, because we're looking at the Strait of Hormuz, we're looking at all these explosions and firing to the Gulf countries, inside Iran, and other states where it spilled over. And this trip, could it be a decider? Is it just going to be a lot of deals and a drawdown to the tariff war? Likely. But whether President Trump wants to or not, Iran does figure quite largely in the equation.
All right. Courtney Kealy, thank you so much for that update.